Alex Collins is a dynamic pianist, composer, and arranger based in New York City, known for his versatility and deep musicality. He's performed with a wide range of celebrated artists, including Michelle Coltrane, Lenny White, Lonnie Plaxico, Ronnie Burrage, and Holographic Principal, and the legendary Dizzy Gillespie All-Stars. He was featured on Gerry Gibbs' chart-topping album Whether or Not and Our People. A recipient of the prestigious Wynton Kelly Jazz Foundation Award for Jazz Achievement, he continues to make his mark on the contemporary jazz scene with both power and finesse. And we're live. So, Alex, good to see you.
Good to see you too, Abe. Thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah, my pleasure. So, let's talk a little bit about you work with so many of these different artists,
Mhm.
but do you still want to keep pursuing like your own projects as a band leader, or is this like the schedule just filled up with so much sideman stuff? That stuff kind of takes a back seat for a little bit.
I think both. I would say that it's very difficult to think about my own compositions when I'm playing with so many other musicians, learning their music, taking it all in, and I love doing that. On the other hand, I would like to do my own project at some point. I'm just waiting for a moment to kind of process everything so I have the freedom to think about my own ideas.
So as far as a band leader goes, what are some of the things that you'd want to pursue? If let's say you had total you had carte blanche to do whatever you wanted with whoever
Wow.
you wanted to do tomorrow, what do you think you would pursue?
Wow, that's very deep. But carte blanche. Okay. There would definitely be an orchestra in there if I had carte blanche because I love to write for orchestra, but of course the budget typically does not accommodate that. I mean, there'd definitely be some great jazz musicians. I like jazz musicians that are open-minded and eclectic. Love the orchestra. There'd be some singers. If I had carte blanche, you'd throw in a few big name like pop singers, to do a couple of tracks, but like, but the good pop singers, not the pop singers that are bubblegum, the ones that have substance. And
Well, quick
you know,
question
I,
also, now that you mentioned pop, do you still have to do other gigs where you're playing pop music, or are mostly all the stuff, the gigs you do strictly jazz? Or do you have to take those gigs also?
Great question. So one, I enjoy playing all types of music. So I do play other styles of music in addition to jazz. I play R&B, funk, things that involve synthesizers as well. So I'm not just an acoustic pianist, but I love to play synthesizers. And I like those gigs because I feel one, I can integrate my jazz skills with those more contemporary styles of music. I don't feel like I have to turn off my jazz hat entirely. I also feel like I learn a lot from the other types of gigs. I meet a lot of great musicians of other genres, and I feel like funk, especially funk and R&B, are kind of like cousins or maybe siblings of jazz. They're and in some ways many contemporary jazz musicians use those styles as um the basis for their music, even if the solos are more jazz based. The grooves and the melodies definitely have those R&B inflections.
Yeah, that sounds like you're open, because some people will just be totally closed off against
Yeah.
playing other styles or listening to other style, but it sounds like you really embrace who you are, because I'm sure it wasn't the first music you ever heard wasn't like, you know, Chick Corea or something, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, the first I heard typical pop music, like when I was a kid, I think my parents were playing the Beatles, Paul Simon, James Taylor, things like that, which for their generation was very normal. So that was probably more of my first exposure to music.
But when did you decide that that jazz was going to be the music that you were going to have to really focus on and study and devote a tremendous amount of time to develop the technique in some of those areas? Did you have like a sort of a pivotal moment when it came to that?
Oh. I had a few moments I would say that were pivotal. I think the first moment was so I started piano when I was in the third grade. And I think around a few months in, I was like messing around with the piano, and my parents heard me and they said, "Oh, it sounds like you're playing a blues or something like that. So I was actually started playing the blues by ear, I think fourth grade. I don't know. And
You mean playing like a 12 bar blues?
yeah, I must have heard some semblance of it like on Sesame Street or something that I watched when I was a kid. So it's in me somehow. And I always loved to play. And then I think around the beginning of ninth grade, I had formally decided that I really wanted to pursue jazz. I mean, I was trying out for the Region Jazz Band in middle school and all that. I tried out for that. But when I got to high school, I was like, jazz is it. So there were a lot of key things that led up to that. I started going to music camp between the end of seventh and the beginning of eighth grade, and I started getting exposure to professional jazz musicians, and I loved it.
Who are some of those people?
Okay, the first year I went to music camp, I went to this place called Hartwick Summer Music Festival, and the big band conductor was a great pianist and arranger named David Lalama. And I think the piano teacher that year, the second year, was Jeremy Manasia, excellent, um, excellent pianist. Who else was there? Throughout the years I went there, there was a wonderful tenor player named Jason Rigby, I believe, was there.
Oh, I
Um,
know all these names you're saying, so it's yeah.
yeah, yeah. I think Jason Gaines, wonderful trumpet player, was there at the time. Another sax player, Alejandro Aviles, John Marshall. There were a lot of great people. So, Bob Sabin, the bass player. They were
Oh,
just
okay. Yeah.
great, great people. So I think I saw the potential for how much fun I could have if I started to study the music
Yeah, and
more.
you're like 13 or 14 around this
Right.
point.
So I'm wowed by these. I'm like totally amazed by these musicians.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's and it sounds like, supportive family is gonna, is well, what greater thing they could do but send you to jazz camp, and now
It's the
look where you
best.
are today, right?
I'm very lucky that my parents were so supportive of my love and my passion and were willing to get me lessons and send me to music camp and all that.
Yeah. Where did you study music formally for
Oh,
college?
sure. So for college, I went to the Eastman School of Music for my undergraduate degree, and I got my
Rochester,
master.
right?
I'm Rochester,
Yeah.
correct. And I got my master's at the Manhattan School of Music. So my undergraduate degree at Eastman was a combination of classical piano and jazz piano. It was called Jazz Studies in Contemporary Media, but the deal was in order to get in, you had to get in on classical and jazz, and then your first 2 years you would study privately classical, and your second 2 years jazz. And
Oh,
then
so it's like classical is all classical first before you even start studying jazz in college.
Well, to a point. So
Yeah.
you would have ensembles and things like that all 4 years, but your lessons and your juries were classical the first 2 years. Yeah. And you
Wow.
didn't study with your jazz teacher till junior and senior year.
Do you feel that was helpful the way they did that? Because classical is very much based on technique, and I don't have to get into the little ins and outs of it, but was that helpful, you think?
Absolutely. I am so grateful for the classical education because I'm a believer that we should be able to pull for our own ideas. Well, actually, this is going to sound contradictory, but we should be able to pull from all types of music. And I think what makes musicians unique are the ones that have a larger array of influences than typical,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
what
that's such a
were you
great
going to say?
point.
Yeah.
Don't run from what you grew up listening to or your influence. It's not going to serve you well. If you embrace who you are, then you'll have a much more distinct voice.
Absolutely. And also be willing to explore new things that you didn't even think when you were a kid were going to impact you. So when I studied with my jazz teacher after my classical teacher, he actually was the one who said to me that he had taken. So my jazz teacher was is a great, great piano player. He's retired from Eastman now, but his name is Harold Danko. And he talked to me about the idea that he had taken a lesson with Chick Corea one time. And he said Chick said to him to open up any piece of classical music and you take from it what you take from it. So to this day, I'm always studying a ton of classical music and I'm just playing through it slowly. There's not necessarily always an intent to be able to perform something tomorrow or even this year. I mean, I work with these pieces for years. I just keep studying them and let some of the, whether it's the harmonic devices, the techniques, the textures, the melodic devices, I kind of allow these things into my playing. And so, and I also know it can take a while to build certain technique to play a certain piece. So I'm grateful for the classical foundation because it's a tool for research. It's a tool to, if you can read music, there's a whole world out there of different things that you can get into your playing that a lot of people don't even begin to study.
No, I do the same thing with classical guitar, actually,
Nice.
just because you have to focus so much on the articulation of, and even though some of these things are rather simple, the technical aspects of it are just so invaluable.
Yeah, absolutely. I love classical guitar. That's great. I studied a tiny bit of the Carcassian on classical guitar.
Caruli, Carcassi, yeah, I love that
Yeah, I
stuff.
love that. I'm a hobbyist with the guitar. Like I'm a passionate hobbyist, so to speak. So I would never say I could go play a gig on guitar, but I appreciate the instrument a lot.
Yeah. So you're still studying these things.
Oh, all the time. I practicing is number one for me. That's my favorite thing to do.
Are you still practicing as much as you did when you were in college studying?
Well, let's put it this way. I think I practice way better now, way more maturity. So I think I'm more patient. I practice slower. Um, do I practice as much as I did? I mean, between the gigs and I do some teaching at the County College of Morris, I don't get in quite as much time as I would like. However, because of all the great gigs I get to play, I'm learning on the bandstand, and then I'm using my time off the bandstand with the more heightened awareness I've gained from being on the bandstand to inform my practice so I can be more ready for the next gig. So it's less individual time than I would like, but I get a lot of great
And just being an
collaboration.
adult too.
I know. It's rough. I'm kidding. It's fine.
Yeah. I know. I mean, I used to be able to practice like 5, 6 hours a day when I was younger.
That's
It's
the
just
best. That's the best. Get lost in the practice, don't have to worry about, all the adult
money.
responsibilities. Yeah, of
Don't even worry
course.
about money.
Nope.
Yeah. But you did say you do some teaching
I do.
at the County College of Morris. Is that piano or is that
Yeah, so that's that I teach piano to the private piano majors. And the the private piano majors do a classical jury. So I'm teaching them classical piano. So right now, I have three private students. They're all working on Mozart sonatas. And then the the other thing I do is I teach piano labs, which are there are two types of piano labs. One is for any student in the school. Um, and that is um those are classes where you have 10 people in a class, right? Or something like that. And they all sit at these little pianos and they play pieces based on their level of musicianship. So I have some students playing very beginner pieces, some students playing basic Chopin pieces. And I walk around the room and I kind of help each of them develop. It's kind of like an individual lesson in a group setting. And then the other class I teach is a type of piano for music majors who aren't pianists. And in those classes, that's a sequence to help all those students learn a certain amount of piano so they understand music on a deeper level.
yeah, this is like these sound like fun. These sound like fun classes, to be honest.
They are. I enjoy it. I enjoy the students. I enjoy teaching. I enjoy the faculty community. It's great over there. So I have a great time.
Yeah, that's one thing I wish I never learned. I mean, I play piano now, but I never had piano lessons growing
Yeah.
up. And then when I went for my to audition to go get a doctorate, this is like 15 years ago.
You have a
Uh,
doctorate? I didn't know that.
no, I don't. I don't.
Oh,
But I auditioned to go get one 15 years ago, and they wanted you to like play like all the things you are voice leading, like, and I have no piano knowledge or technique whatsoever.
right.
And I didn't get in because my piano playing wasn't good enough. They're like, I'm a guitarist, so this doesn't make any sense. But
Wow.
it's it's such a valuable thing. I mean, I always I would always tell someone start on piano, then switch to guitar at least. Because it's easier on the hands, and I feel like they're more accessible.
Oh, piano?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think starting on
I think
piano
it's
is
easier on the hands. I can say that because I play I play a steel string guitar.
yeah, it
As I mean
hurts.
I play a Martin I have a Martin OM28 and so I remember just to be able to switch between two chords, guitarists make it look easy. My hands would be hurting at the beginning. I could barely like play just a basic chord progression, like, a G to a D to a C, in that basic
Yeah.
way that
I actually wrote a book on transitioning through open chords.
oh wow,
It's
that's
called
cool.
Conquer Open Chords because like no one knows how to move from one to the other. It's like the hardest thing. I'm like, let me write a book on this stuff.
Yeah, yeah, totally.
But that's so cool you play guitar. That's a dreadnought you play.
No, OM.
Oh.
It's the small body.
Ah, okay.
So it's not that small. It's like it's a triple O size. It's kind of one of those like very balanced guitars, top to bottom. So it has the triple O body, but it's got like the long scale neck. It's got the 25.4-inch neck rather than the 24.9. So it's got a little more pop to the sound.
Do you like decompress from like the piano and the teaching playing guitar, you
I
think, or
do.
is you have to
I
do other
do.
things?
I love playing the guitar. It is
Wow.
so relaxing for me. And because I don't have any ambitions
It's
with
just
it,
fun.
it's just fun. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I know how much you play during the week, you're playing several times a week, and you're teaching regularly. So, yeah, talk to me about the balance because you seem so positive and uh willing to just to share all of your experience and everything. So talk to me about finding that balance between being a pro and but also maintaining the positive outlook.
Oh, sure. I think the thing for all of us is we have to find comfort in the fact that things are very unpredictable. They could be very busy, they could be not busy. So, kind of learning one, when things are busy, appreciate it, enjoy it, don't feel tired and drained. When things aren't busy, don't be worried all the time. Appreciate that. I think one of the things that's been hard, I'm sure you can relate, is initially saying no to gigs. We're always thinking if we don't take a gig, we might start not getting called by this person. So we have to make sure we take everything we can. And sometimes what happens is, initially you're taking gigs because either A, there's something that pays really well, B, it's just people you really want to play with, or C, you just need to make sure you get seen and any of these three things. So most gigs that I know I get called for, I want to take. It's at least one of those three, if not more. And so learning sometimes that your body will get worn down if you don't rest, and to make sure that when you have some time to do nothing, that you really make sure you treat yourself well, eat a good meal, relax, sleep, see some friends, just make sure that you don't take every free moment and go practice, even though that could be my instinct to go do
Yeah.
sometimes.
I know what you're saying. Like last night I was watching Curb Your Enthusiasm. I've been rewatching it.
Great show.
Yeah, and then
Great
like
show.
I'm like trying to practice while I'm watching it, but I'm like my body is telling me just to put the guitar down.
Right. Because especially, as we get older, like you start to feel sometimes in your back or whatever. I just had um I lightly hurt my back like a week ago. I'm fine now, but it was like, yeah, I gotta lay low sometimes and not just run to the piano every second I get.
Yeah. Well, it's yeah. I mean, when we're younger, we want these things so badly we don't even think about it.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember, you could, when you were younger, not you, I mean, when we were younger, you could play a gig, your technique could be questionable at times, and you'd end the gig with a smile on your face. You'd wake up the next day feeling like $1 million. Now I'm sure we play with right technique, but because we're older, we need to, because if we don't, our body will get injured a lot quicker.
Totally, totally. Do you remember your first jazz gig where you were improvising on standards?
Wow, that's a great question. First jazz gig. that I was improvising on standards.
It could be solo or duo or trio. Anything come to mind? Or
Yeah,
one of
okay.
your
So, well, my first gig professionally was when I was growing up. We had our next door neighbor had me play at a private party at her house, and I was a sophomore in high school. So that was my first professional gig, if you want to say. And I was playing standards. Um, and then my first really wild professional gig was I was opening for Ralph Peterson's band.
Oh,
And
wow.
and I remember that gig. I was 18 and it was at NJ Pack, and I was a student at NJ Pack's Jazz for Teens. I had done 4 years there all through high school. So they had me pick a trio and perform. So I'm performing, and then at the half, Ralph Peterson looks at me and he goes, "Be careful what you wish for." And I guess due to extenuating circumstances, his pianist didn't show up. So I end up getting on stage with Ralph Peterson's band that night. And that was my first like unbelievable professional experience. And it was Charles Famborough on bass, Sean Jones on trumpet, and Wayne Escoffrey on tenor. So I was thrown into the fire. That was in standards, but that was wild. That was great. And I was fearless enough because I was young. There's like an age where all of a sudden you start to understand that the stakes of a situation, but I was just so excited to get that opportunity. So that was my first professional gig, but we might have only played one standard. I think we played Pee Wee by was it Wayne Shorter wrote that or Miles Davis? Some one of those from that 65 to 68 period of Miles. Yeah.
That's a trip.
I know.
How old were you when that happened? You were,
18.
and that's like when you're, yeah, it's a unbelievable experience.
The best. It was like the best way to get thrown into the fire. You're not expecting it, but you just go with it. And
Did you ever end up playing with any of those people later on in life?
no, no. And it was totally positive. I mean, there was nothing at all. Actually, I did play a gig with Wayne Escoffrey, or maybe a couple of gigs or so where we were both sidemen. Um, One, I believe, was with Gerry Gibbs. Gerry Gibbs had put together like this fusion band with like two keyboards. Didn't record that band, but we did something there. I think actually Vic Juris could have been on that gig.
Oh,
You're
wow.
great. We all loved Vic Juris. He was incredible. Um, who else was on that? Maybe it was like three drummers. It might have been this three drummer gig with like Jonathan Blake, Clarence Penn, and Gerry Gibbs all trading, sitting at the drum set. I
Yeah.
think that's
No,
the
just
gig.
curious to be like, oh, like, you could have been like, oh, do you remember when we played together when I was 18 or something?
Maybe I did ask him. I forget. Like, I don't know if I even talked to him about it, but
Yeah.
I should. I should bring that up. Yeah.
No, this is great. So you're working throughout the week, and I know you're always doing things. So talk what's on the agenda for the next week that you want to share? Because
Next
you're just always
week.
working. Yeah, you're always working.
Yeah. Oh, thanks, Abe. Next week. So let's see. I'm at the Roxy with John Lee's band, on Tuesday. So I always, for those who are listening, I always perform with John Lee's trio and quartet. And I've been with him since the top of 2019. So 6 years now with that. That's been going great. Oh, and I'll also be with him with the Dizzy Gillespie All-Stars at the Blue Note on Thursday, April 10th. And then I'm playing with a great soul singer named JT Bowen on Saturday at Arthur's Tavern. Oh, and on this Wednesday, I'm playing with Russ Nolan, great sax player, at Sour Mouse in the city. So just a few things. There's probably some other things that aren't
Yeah.
hitting my brain right now, but
Uh,
just a few.
no, Alex, this has been great. Thanks so much for taking the time today to talk to me a little
Oh,
bit.
Abe, thank you so much for having me. It's been a blast.
Yeah, absolutely.